Hey, Chiefs Kingdom, welcome. This is going to be a fun one. We have Chief of the North. Seth is getting online right now, and we're going to go over not just what we saw week one against the Browns, but what's coming against the Ravens. We're going to answer some of your questions. Gonna have a good time. I just want to say now, welcome to RGR. And before we get going, I do want to say thank you to DraftKings, our newest sponsor, and helping them helps us, and we appreciate if you check them out. It's been a great start to the season so far, and it's only getting better at DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. Right now, they're putting their new customers front and center into the action with a shot at millions of dollars in total prizes, and you can get in on that action right now. Simply pick your lineup, stay under the salary cap, and see how your team does against the competition. Feel the NFL like never before with a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable no matter what. The best part is that you deposit and you withdraw your cash whenever you want. All you got to do is download the DraftKings app. Use our code RGR21. You can see it over there. Yeah, right there. Enter that code, and it gives you a shot at that millions of total prizes in a bunch of different contests. Whatever you feel like doing, props or otherwise, enter that code RGR21 and get a free shot at the 1 million total as well. That's RGR21 to get in on the action at DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. Minimum $5 deposit. Eligibility restrictions do apply. See DraftKings.com for all the details and get in on that action. Here is the man himself, the Chief in the North. How are you, Mr. Kaiser?
I'm doing awesome. Life is good. I can't complain, and even if I did, no one would care.
No, I wouldn't.
You know what? I bet there's more sympathetic voices among our watchers, listeners. I still haven't gotten past something less creepy than watchers. But no, life is good, man. I got to experience Arrowhead at its absolute apex. I got to eat. I only ate 2 meals on between Saturday and Sunday.
Joe's and Joe's and Joe's?
No, I ate Joe's on Saturday, and then I ate Arrowhead Tailgate on Sunday. Ate the best pulled pork that I've ever had.
Really?
It was just awesome. Shout out to Clint, my host. It was tremendous. I ate so much food. I had such a good time. Life is good. And I got to watch the Chiefs win and shriek like a girl. It was great.
Oh, I like that. Hey, I wish I was there in person to hear you shriek like a girl. I'm glad a good time was had. I'm looking forward to that. I'll be back there at some point this season, you two guys, but I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And hey, congrats to Clint too. Oh shoot, I got something to show you. But in the meantime, I know you just put something out. What's going on at the Substack this week? And I'm going to go dip out here for a second.
Absolutely. So just today, there was a new article published. Ryan's going to go rob a bank, apparently. So just today at the Substack that I'm sure Ryan will show you all when you come back, Minnesota Chiefs fan Substack, go to bit.ly/Seth really hates money to subscribe for $12 a year. Today, it published Orlando Brown and Lucas Niang film review against the Browns. This is I love this time where I get to do what I do, where I get to go back, take a look at narratives, see whether they match up. And the narrative from this week's game was, well, Brown and Niang, they were okay kind of against the Browns, but they could have been better, et cetera, et cetera. And so what I do is I look at every single snap, because you have to, because if you don't look at every snap, if you don't chart what you're looking at, it's mostly just anecdotal, even if you're doing the best you can. And so right now, Orlando Brown, Lucas Niang, every single snap charted, multiple fun moving pictures that I believe the children are calling GIFs or perhaps GIFs, depending on. And it is so much fun. And the great thing about it was I got a chance to be wrong, because I had some of those same concerns about the line on first watching. And part of that, I think, is like, you're in Arrowhead, you're with the crowd. Mahomes got rocked the first play of the game on an RPO, mind you, which we'll get into this in a minute. No, we're going to get into it now. So with an RPO with a run pass option, one of the disadvantages that gives a left tackle if he's on the backside of an RPO, is that his initial set, generally speaking, is going to look like a run block, because otherwise it might be a little bit useless. And if you're playing a freak of nature, like, I don't know, Myles Garrett, he might just blow the crap by you and lay out your quarterback. Now, to be fair, there was also a snap that demonstrated some of Brown's weaknesses in terms of just elite foot speed. He doesn't have it. Yeah. And so he's not going to recover with that really quick step. If he misses that first step, it's a little bit tough. The ball got out, but Mahomes took a hit. And Brown had 2 bad losses on the first drive that I think really drove the narrative around him the rest of the game. The good news is, and this is just a preview, the numbers are all there. You got to subscribe to read this one. I'm sorry. This is about 2 hours of my life charting snaps, so that is what it is. Brown, I only charted him as having 5 losses as a pass blocker the entire game. And so for kind of a frame of reference, his loss percentage in total was 9.2%. Anything under 10% is acceptable as a starter. Obviously the lower you get, the better. But over the course of the season, I want my starters in the 8 or 9 range, ideally 5 or 6, honestly, because losses are so much more important than wins. And we've gone over the methodology here. So, wins, loss, neutral. FAKC, I am on 810 Sports. I appear with Josh Briscoe and Soren Petro. And so, sorry, I just
don't
saw
let me
that.
come on anymore, you guys.
Well, people heard how much better people like you, and I was like, guys, you got to stop it.
Sure.
And so the biggest thing that's important with tackles, especially, is losses. A dominant win on the edge looks great, but it doesn't really matter that much in terms of helping the play succeed. Mm-hmm. A loss can derail a play. It can derail a drive. And so losses are way more important. And I would just say 5 pass block losses in a single game would probably be 1 or 2 more than I'd really like from a guy who you're touting as your long-term Pro Bowl level tackle. Against Myles Garrett, that's a phenomenal game. I wouldn't call it like an elite level, like to where like Trent Williams might only have 1 or 2.
Yeah.
But Brown isn't Trent Williams, at least not yet. And let me just tell you, after that first drive, Brown, by and large, got the better of that matchup. Oh, but Seth, what about that 3rd down sack? Yes, that was a loss for Brown. And it's a sack that I put partly on him. But also, if you look, Mahomes was a shade over 10 yards drop back. Mm-hmm. Had he been at the usual 8 or 9 yard depth that they were shooting for all game, he probably still would have gotten sacked because Niang lost worse. That was a tougher sack for him, because if you really look at it, so you had Garrett coming around here, and then you had Niang's guy coming at a more shallow angle. This is not showing it well.
This was the crunch with Clowney, right? Because Niang's initial contact was good, but he couldn't sustain it.
Yeah, he couldn't sustain it, and that was a problem that he had throughout the game, although he played pretty well overall. But you saw more holes. I'm not worried about either of them. Niang didn't play as well as Brown. And considering the quality of competition, I'm very encouraged about Brown. But even that sack, it looked bad. Had Niang not lost on that rep, Mahomes steps up, and none of us even remember it. I still charted as a loss for Brown, but that was a borderline one considering how far back Mahomes was. Overall, he managed to do with Garrett, and I know you guys did a film review here as well, and so I'm excited to see, differences in how Dan and I and you and I might have seen things. One thing that I found interesting was what Brown did to Garrett was what he generally does to everyone else. He shuts down inside rushes, and Garrett tried a few times. He manhandled Myles Garrett a few times to the inside in a way that is – Garrett isn't quite an Aaron Donald level athletic freak, but he's about as close as it gets. I don't know who else is that, that big, that strong, that quick.
Watt is like in the Vaughn, like he'll get you with speed first, and he's developed his power after that. So I don't know, challenge.
And he's built for it, where he really does have that build to really develop that power. And he, despite that, a guy who should be able to convert speed to power, Niang Brown was able to force him. He just couldn't win inside. And the way Brown wins, and we talked about this in the offseason, is he makes pass rushers singular. Yep. He forces them to only try to win the edge because they just can't power through him. Because even when they win that initial, he's so big, so strong, has so much length, and he's got good hand placement and recovery that he's able to re-anchor, and you just don't get real good pressure that way. And that's what happened. If you really go back and watch Brown or Garrett, some of those, he had some good wins early and he had a few wins otherwise. Then you had a bunch of snaps that if you were just casually watching, you might think were kind of borderline snaps. But what it is he's going around the arc over and over and over. And it doesn't necessarily look pretty. You and I talked about this. Brown's utilizing that turn and chase technique. But boy, does it work. Just snap after snap.
And
so
it makes him tired too.
See, that's what you get for giving me the mic early on. I'll take 10 straight minutes and talk about O-line play. But I was really encouraged and wrong. I walked away from that game concerned about Brown. Not too concerned, but a little like, it's a bummer. I thought he would hold up better against Garrett. Instead, it was more of when I rewatched, Garrett is precisely the kind of opponent where I think you'll see an upgrade from what they had in Fisher. All the respect in the world for Eric Fisher. He never played Myles Garrett that well during his time in KC. He struggled with those guys that had some power to their game. That was a problem for him. And with Brown, he's able to convert them into pure speed rushers.
Well, and one of the games that I did before the playoff game against the Browns last year was Orlando playing Garrett last year in Baltimore. So this went exactly how I expected, a couple of snaps in either direction. And folks, if you missed Dan's breakdown of the offensive line play, go back and check that. It's on the channel from Wednesday. I guess that was yesterday. I'm losing my mind here. And unfortunately, while I've seen the All-22, I couldn't download the All-22, so I didn't have it to make a video with. So unfortunately, I've watched it, and my takeaway was similar, although I was not as down as Niang as you seem to be. And maybe I'm over-exaggerating your opinion, but I took it like this. Orlando won from the waist up, and Niang won from the waist down. And I see that as a building block that can very much pay off for Niang.
That's a great way of phrasing it with Niang. The thing with him that you see right away, for one, he's playing the type of guy that he never saw in college. Mm-hmm. Clowney is not a great edge rusher, but he's not bad either. He's good. And he gives guys problems. Say again?
And he's quick.
He's quicker than he should be, and he's very strong. And he's also really good at disengaging and sliding off blocks. And that's something upper body wise, you can tell Niang can't quite feel it when to alter his hand placement and leverage. The same way you saw a few snaps with Brown where Garrett would try to convert speed to power and move inside. And Brown immediately just started, you convert from that one hand to the other and start just shoving him towards Joe Thuney, who was virtually always winning his matchup. And Thuney, machine. He had a hold penalty. He's not perfect, but he does the same crap snap after snap. And it just always I'm curious if you put like finger painting on his hands, and had like a dummy up in front of him, if it would be in literally the same place every single time. I feel like it would be, because it looks identical snap to snap.
It'd be pretty close. I only noticed that when he lost a rep or when somebody got loose on him, it was after initial contact that he did successfully. And then on the readjust is where he would lose somebody every now and then.
Yeah, and it's never fast. And that was the same, even when he lost some reps to Aaron Donald. And Donald, if you want to get stressed out, chart an offensive lineman snaps against Donald. It is stressful. But even then, Donald never beat him immediately. And if you can even give your quarterback an extra half second, that matters. Thank you for flipping that screen.
Yeah, I was just looking at the names. It was, yeah, sorry.
So don't I wish in my wildest fantasies that I could be Ryan.
Whatever.
So the thing with Niang, I like the way you framed it there. The thing with Niang that you could see is what made him a top tier tackle prospect for the pros before playing his last season hurt. He is one of those world guys in that there aren't a lot of people in the world who have his feet, who are his size. Yeah. And he moves really well. I'm not down on him really. I thought he played an average game. And when you factor in Clowney, maybe you call it a little above average. Now you don't get the same bump that you get playing Myles Garrett. You just don't. But he lost one more pass pro rep than Brown, which it's like, it's one rep, but every rep is crucial. Every loss is crucial. The difference between losing one rep and losing 4 reps is night and day at the NFL level in pass protection, especially. But he did play well overall for a rookie in his first start. I was really impressed with his feet. I was really impressed with the raw materials and every problem that he had, which it sounds like I'm down on him, but it's just in comparison to Brown, who played better than I thought initially. Niang was about what I thought initially, was okay, could have been better, could have been way worse. Any problems that he had, he allowed guys to disengage from him without really quite understanding how to reset his hands when guys converted speed to power a little bit. And that was just, and then he did miss pretty badly on one stunt that looped around his way. That's something I saw in the preseason as well. And so it's stuff that can be worked on because the raw material is there. The strength is there. He wasn't losing on a couple of power rushes because he's not strong enough. He just was letting Clowney kind of disengage from him and move inside.
Well, and he slipped to one side or the other, ducked that shoulder, and then you didn't have the leverage anymore. I mean,
right. And that's a hand placement issue, and that's a leverage issue, and that's something you learn. And the great thing for Niang is he's got the arm length, he's got the upper body strength. If you don't think he's got the upper body strength, watch him run block. Yeah. It's definitely there. Ooh. Now, is he Brown in upper body strength? No. Brown's a freak.
He's nearly as long, though. I think their arm length is close.
It is close. Yeah, he just doesn't have Brown's 18-foot legs,
right?
Give or take. If Brown were allowed to kick guys, it'd be like that Undertaker kick, that old. So I think Niang has all the raw materials. He played well, especially for a rookie. But those things, that leverage, letting guys disengage, that's stuff that can be worked on. So I'm pretty high on Niang coming out. I see why they started him above Remmers, who is an average right tackle at the NFL level, and that's a compliment.
I agree. Jimmy, I'll go first so Seth can take a drink. 15 words or less. How do you attack the Chiefs tackles if you were a Ravens defender? First, I put Owe over on Niang all day long because Justin doesn't have the get off to compete with Niang. I think if you flip that, I think it's slow on challenged feet anyway. Houston on Brown. So I think you want to maximize that. I also think that you want to try to overload because the gap inside of Niang, I think, is someplace that you might be able to squeeze into. I thought Trey Smith played okay. There were a couple of times he didn't get out of the blocks well enough for me. Nothing that looks any different than his college film, you guys. Very much reminiscent of Orlando in that he wins from the waist up. And if you can get him moving from the waist down well enough, he's going to be fine.
Mm-hmm. And he overall, what's interesting to me, I would say Humphrey outplayed Smith, which, to be fair, because of the role in the Chiefs center in the offense, he wasn't asked to do as much.
True.
But I thought he looked more comfortable out there. I thought Smith was fine. I thought he played an average game as well, maybe a little above average. But it is funny, you get a few pancakes and the narrative's a little bit different. I mean, Tooney, I think, outplayed Smith, which he should. I mean, he's a Pro Bowl level guard. He should be outpaid. That's why the Chiefs paid him $1 zillion a year. I think 15 words or less. I just to be controversial, I would flip. I would have Houston on Niang just because Houston's so good with his hand placement and converting speed to power. I think he might be able to. That's one of his favorite moves is, that jab and then swat and inside. And that particular move looks like it could give Niang some problems, whereas I don't think that move is beating Brown.
Okay, fair enough. I'll be interested to see what they do. Before we pay some bills, because they're super chatters and we appreciate you guys, I just want to say thank you to you for this.
Oh, hey, you got it.
Yeah.
There's Super Bowl confetti right there. Super Bowl LIV, my friend.
That is awesome. I appreciate that. I'm working on a display that'll go with some of my other stuff, so thank you.
That's so cool. And Stevie, yours went in the mail the same day. So,
in fact, Stevie has comments in here. We'll see if you say anything about it. First super chatter. Thank you, Ben Brockback. If you're not a sub yet, like, sub, and hit that bell. If you want to support the channel, the super chats are the way to do it because it's just so easy and we can answer a question or hit a topic for you or whatever you're looking for. If you'd like to buy some gear as well, that's always a nice one as well. And the memberships are open. The Discord is open, you guys. You still get the bonus content. If I ever get film, I'll do some of that probably behind the scenes as well. And it looks like we're going to have some additional content for you this weekend as well. Want to get to the questions. Oh, wait, Ben has 2 in here. You're killing me, Ben. Let me see if I can get back up to the top and get the ones that I need to get. But in the meantime, I'm going to put Stevie's on here because Stevie said positive reinforcement for Seth not wearing silver and black. Well done.
I literally changed what I was wearing today. I was getting ready. I had to get up just god awful early today. It was ridiculous. And I was getting ready to put on my usual outfit. I was like, no, I'm going to put on something else. So you guys are slowly but surely morphing me into what you would like, similar to what my wife has done.
Well done. And we didn't have to put a ring on that finger. Who was your biggest surprise of the past weekend? Biggest disappointment? Surprise and disappointment. Thank you, Joseph Jackson, for your support as well.
For me, I think in terms of surprise, man, there weren't a ton of, I'm trying to think of like, it was surprising to me how the Chiefs defense got taken by surprise by some of the things the Browns did in terms of play action and getting out of place. So I would say that's the biggest surprise and disappointment.
Oh, okay. I was going to say I was disappointed with the run fits out of the linebackers, all of them.
Oh, yeah.
Surprise, probably that despite giving up, like you said, some losses in pass blocking, they didn't give up that much pressure. And I thought as a unit, the five looked at a great start for five dudes who've never played together under fire before. So like, I feel good about where they're going. The judge, thank you very much for your support. He asked, who wins in a fight, Mahomes or Jackson?
Like Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I've only ever stood next to Mahomes. He is huge. He's a big dude.
And he can take a hit. My money's on Mahomes.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's just a bigger guy.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Oh, Stevie did say, Seth, that he thinks that the confetti's going back to your direction. Sorry, Stevie.
Oh no.
Maybe there's a bounce. I know he's moved and everything, so there's always something going on. I'll get you back in touch and we'll figure that out.
I got you.
Eric, how long does it take Patrick to realize the interior line is now a strength? He should usually have a clean pocket to step up into. Thank you, Eric, for the support. I mean, I thought I saw a marked difference in him not running out the back of the pocket, not bailing early. I still want him to take a few more underneath things and not hang quite as long, but I think it does take some time. But in a couple of weeks, I feel like he's going to be in there, like hitting more of a rhythm inside the pocket. I
thought I already saw more of him dropping back to 9 and stepping up quickly than we saw last year. And I think I saw more of that last week than I saw in most games last year. And the interior line answered the call overall. They look like they could be very, very good. And that now, Cleveland's interior line isn't tremendous, but they've got some guys who can play a little on there. And I think Tooney and Creed are going to keep being rock solid. Creed is an excellent help blocker. Okay. And I think you're going to see a pretty marked change with him there in terms of being able to hold up and help provide a solid actual line there rather than giving ground the way Austin Ryder did at times.
Whereas Ryder would look for help, Creed finds help and finds something to do. It is important to do. Yeah, I probably said that wrong. You're right. Laddie, thank you for your support as always. What did you take of the statement? I'm not a snitch.
Player say all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Let me just tell you, if his new boss asked him about things they did at their old company and he's not legally obligated to not tell, they're going to talk about it, of course. But, they're not going to say that. That's okay. Right.
And at the same time, like, Houston wasn't there last year, always a rookie. So he doesn't have a whole lot to offer Yang or what they're going to do at their end. So I don't know that there's a whole lot that he could, to tell you the truth. But
absolutely. I love the Houston signing for them, by the way. I think that was a great it was a great kind of rental type move on their part for a guy who's still productive.
Yeah. And I'm a huge Justin Houston guy. I know it didn't end well in terms of effort in Kansas City, but I still like the guy. And I'm glad to see him on a roster that I thought had a pretty good chance to go far. I'm not so sure that's the case
before 2/3 of it became injured.
Right. I mean, and now like putting all the grudges back in there with Justin and Sammy over there and, Orlando, obviously, like there's a lot. I think this game still holds up. This might be more of a grudgy, gritty kind of game than I thought it was going to be originally. undergarments. Okay. That was in reference to the PJs. Thanks,
Yeah,
Stevie.
whatever, man. Who says I'm wearing undergarments, Stevie?
Oh, don't do that on. Oh, I wasn't ready for that one.
You're welcome, Ryan.
Ben, thank you again for number 2. Guys, this isn't the normal Q&A on Monday night. Monday nights, I answer every question. We're trying to hit the super chatters and make sure we don't leave anybody hanging there. But I don't see anything from Ben. I'll try to circle back to you. Dre, how are you, bud? We both watch Mitch pretty much anytime we can. I've been on his Instagram lately. Have you been into that, Seth?
I know he posted something. I haven't had a chance to see it. I would just say the moment Mitch starts a Substack or whatever he's going to do, I'm there. I'm going to have to start making some choices about Substack.
Mitch, can I offer you Chief in the North?
Hey, whoa. Hey, look, if I thought, I mean, I could pay him, but I couldn't possibly make it worth his while.
Right.
He'd be much better off just starting his own. I mean, anything he does, you'll learn a ton from.
Absolutely. Terrell, thank you very much. I think you made it where you were going before as we talked. So I'm glad you made it back. Let's see. I'm listening to that one. Okay. Yep. I'm with you. Eric, blitzing a lot of playing man. How ugly does this get? It's going to be pretty ugly if they continue to empty the middle and have corners on the outside that can't keep up.
If they play it that way, barring Campbell and Houston having like throwback nights, it'll get really ugly.
Yeah, I think so too. Gooch, thank you as always. He's on the way back. Sesson Raiders colors. Yeah, but it's reversed now. And it's not as blatant. Coming up next on the life. What your clothes choice to say about your fandom? I will like
blue. That. Get your eyes checked, Gooch.
Oh, let me zoom in on you here.
Yeah, this is blue. It's a light blue.
Baby
See?
Blue. That's a George Strait song.
Yeah.
Folks, if you don't know what Gooch is referring to, that is the Rogue Life show that he does for the members. You got to join over there underneath Seth to get into those. And thank you as always, Gooch. Glad you made it. Let's see who is next. We have Patty. Thank you very much for the support. I'll see if there's anything underneath it for you. I'm not seeing that one. Tyler said, is Creed the next Casey Wigman? I'll let you start.
Casey Wigman was an excellent center who was perfect for what the Chiefs needed on that particular line. I think Creed could be a superior player because Wigman was a very, very good player, but he did have some issues in terms of his size and strength. I think Humphrey could be a better player. And again, that's not a diss on Wigman, who was a very good player. I just think he had some specific weaknesses that I don't think Humphrey shares. I think his ceiling, the way someone phrased it to me once, was a semi-roided out Mitch Morse. And that's a very high ceiling, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I see Morse in the Wigman vein.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Like, Creed's way better upper body strength and has a better anchor, in my opinion. He's nowhere near the athlete either of those two guys are.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, those two are two of the better athletes I've ever seen play center.
Yeah.
They're both just terrific. But he's got a better anchor. And so, you get like, if you can get, 130% of the strength with 90% of the athleticism, 85% of the athleticism, you're still so athletic. You can, because if you watched Humphrey in space and some of the plays they ran, he's so comfortable in space. He's an excellent athlete. Those two guys were just otherworldly athletes at the center position.
Exactly. Yeah, they were the elite of the elite in terms of centers on the move. What about the Chiefs fans drafting AFC West foes in the RGR Fantasy Football League, Gooch? That's not a question for us, but thanks for you're throwing it out there. I don't know what's going on in the fantasy league, folks. If you're interested in that stuff, you can get updates from Aaron and stuff. I have nothing to do with fantasy. Aaron, the Supermod, is in here. Stevie, Gooch, all the guys. You can get some information and you can see them when you join the memberships. And Gooch said, "Who did that? Oh, you guys are like on the warpath. Okay, I'm not going to help this." Brett, Matt, and Ryan. Snead has great speed. Oh, this must be a question from the other day. A great recovery speed. Do you think he's better on the mental side? He will be an all-pro. Do you think Snead has an all-pro kind of career in his future?
And he's got the physical talent for it. He had a tough run on Sunday. He had a couple of really tough snaps in a row.
Yeah.
But overall, I thought he played pretty decently. I just think it was clear that he is a second-year player who has a ton of talent and plays really well in coverage, but there's some areas that he's still got to work on.
Yeah. In particular, being able to recognize
Mm-hmm.
by feel in particular, especially like that in Joker route. Like he was pretty close, but if he had felt that through his hands a little bit more, I think he would have been in a position to take that ball away or at least
absolutely. And I think he was asked to do a little more, or a lot more, honestly, with Matthew out.
And I said during the game, and I think on Twitter, that clearly the Browns scouted him. Like they knew how they were going to adjust to him.
Yeah.
Doug, I'm disappointed the Chiefs cut Amari Cobb. So am I. I thought the linebacker is their weak spot. Cobb seemed to have a great preseason. What are your thoughts? I think he's the only guy on this, or that was on this practice squad, that could actually run and not see a huge drop off from Willie. Like he outside of Willie Gay, he was the fastest, most laterally agile linebacker they had. It just shows you that what he lacks in instincts is more of a concern for Spags and for Matt House, I assume, than having the literal foot speed. So it is what it is. Do you have any thoughts on Cobb himself?
No.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, Stevie will not be responsible for responses. Understood. I like that. What's the Super Bowl prediction and who wins? Nice one, Judge. Thank you. Do you have one?
Chiefs over Tampa Bay. Part of that is I want that. I want it so bad. I want the Buccaneers to make the Super Bowl, even though I think the Buccaneers are a team that's very, 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 very good, and they're well built to beat the Chiefs in a lot of ways. You know, they got a really good four-man rush. The play action stuff they do, testing some of the stuff in the middle of the field, can give the Chiefs some problems. They've got, great receivers, some really good personnel, all that stuff. But if Mahomes is going to get a fair conversation shot at being the GOAT, he's kind of got to beat Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And that's just the way the cookie crumbles, because let's say Mahomes wins this year, right? And he at some point wins a couple back-to-backs and he ends up winning 8 to Tom Brady's 7. It won't matter.
Nope.
Because people will say, well, he still never took it from Tom, and when they played head-to-head. And so I want that for him.
I agree with you. I want that as well. I got to say, going off of the week 1 performances, I think I would give the Rams the edge. But that's just my thought. I mean, it's just 1 week, but they came out firing.
And Matt Stafford in that offense is really interesting.
Right? Like Stafford and McVay versus Reed and Mahomes is going to be a shootout. I'll still take the Chiefs, but I think that they have the ability, if they continue what they started week 1, to take out the Bucs.
Mm-hmm.
And you heard me, Bucs fans. Terrell, thank you. This is a good point. The AFC West went undefeated. It's early, but which team do you think will be the biggest challenge given what you saw last week?
Both the Chargers and the Raiders have played the Chiefs well in different ways in recent years. With Derwin James healthy, the Chargers spook me. They give a unique set of problems. Now, the Chiefs' offensive line is very different this year, and there's no more Melvin Ingram, and I think that showed up in their pass rush a little bit in their game, because they didn't really replace him.
Yeah, and
that's problematic, because that's one of the reasons they've given the Chiefs so many problems. They've been able to smash that pocket, and last year they were able to get some rush in the interior. Derwin James healthy, though, it alters everything for the Chiefs because he can cover Travis Kelce, and no one else can.
He can't stop Damian Williams, though.
No, he can't stop Damian Williams. That's just not something he can possibly do. So the Chargers worry me in that aspect. I guess if I were going to say in head-to-head matchups, I want to see how the Raiders do against a few other teams, because if they have a legitimate defense, their offense has given Spagnuolo's unit problems the last couple of years. Like Gruden has had Spagnuolo's number. Pretty bad.
I chalked last year up to Tyron and Sorensen both biting on fakes. But
that's true.
You take those out, that's not a loss.
But I mean, some of that though, it just seems like they were getting yardage and getting those open looks consistent enough that I'm curious what that represents. But hopefully you're right. If not, them with a legitimate defense could give the Chiefs some problems. I think overall, though, the Chargers are the better team. And so far, they've stayed healthy.
Yeah, they'd be the one that scares me as well. Raiders and Broncos don't, even though I'm happy for Teddy playing pretty well. And remember, folks, when I told you about Bryan Edwards, that he had the ability to become a go-to receiver, watch what happens for him with the Raiders. Stevie said, or Gooch and Stevie put it together that juicy and adorable, or not adorable, sorry. That's in reference to you and what articles of clothing you may be handling here. Brandon Church, thank you for your super chat. Do you think that CEH can handle a 20 carry per game load, or will the season fatigue set in down the stretch?
I don't think he's going to have 20 carries too often. I mean, he's a guy that's been a workhorse before. That's just not generally speaking how they do things.
Yeah.
And honestly, if the Chiefs are running the ball 20 times in a game, especially with one back, I'd be curious about the flow of that game. So I'm not too worried about that. I do think they're going to give Williams, and McKinley is always a guy who can get a few more carries and should have. I'd have loved to see him get a few more touches on Sunday.
Yeah. I think Clyde could do it. I agree with you. I don't think that he will have to. Holly, thank you for your super chat. No question, but stoked because I received my Wk2 jersey. Good. I'm super glad to see that. I'm going to need a picture in the Discord, though. Ended up with Ryan's number choice. Nice. Always put 9 something. I like that. I like the 09 as well. I'm glad you got it. Let's see. Do you think that Fred Clark coming back opposite Chris Jones is going to make a big difference? Good question, Dre. Big is an understatement to me.
An understatement or an overstatement?
An understatement.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that? Because I'm curious.
How many doubles did you see Reed take?
Not many.
I counted 7. So I think that's a lot. And I think Frank's
presence that is a lot.
That.
I wasn't paying attention to that, so I'm glad to hear you say it.
Yeah.
That is really, really interesting. I'm trying to tweet and talk at the same time.
Yeah, I get it.
Oh, here, hold on. About to talk about Frank Clark's return.
Oh, well done.
What could I possibly say next? This is gold stuff that you're watching.
It's awesome. But that presence, though, and honestly, Noddy versus the run and Frank versus the pass, I think, are the two things that help keep Reed clean. And everybody was down on Reed for not generating more pass rush, and I think that was part of it.
I think that's not a bad point. Reed was attracting some double teams. I also, especially at certain points in that game, there was a really big emphasis on double teaming anyone they had at 3-tech, which I assume was kind of a game plan around, you got Chris Jones there. That game actually served as a really good example of one reason it was a great idea to move Chris Jones out to the edge more. And you and I have had various amounts of anxiety about it, kind of figuring out what it would work, how it would work. And it just, for some reason, and maybe it's because we tend to outsmart ourselves, I never really just thought about the basic premise of what would it look like in a game where the interior of the opponent is really, really good, for one thing, and they've got a clear focus on stopping whoever the pass rushing defensive tackle is. Mm-hmm. And because Reed got doubled multiple times, I noticed Jones got doubled multiple times too. He got a ton of attention when he was on the inside. And now what they do, well, fine, we'll just move him outside, get some one-on-ones. And because the Browns' game plan didn't revolve around, sending those doubles wide, instead they were bunching up on the interior, that got them those one-on-one matchups with some sacks. And so I do think Reed was drawing attention. He took some heat I saw during the game where people were like, they didn't see much of an impact from him. I think he was drawing attention. He had a couple of nice wins. I haven't charted every snap, so I couldn't say for sure. Clark should benefit from that. I'm going to stick with the one thing. Clark will help with discipline and run defense.
Absolutely.
That's something he's excellent at. And that's something even last year, playing poorly or more poorly than you'd like to see from him with that contract, that trade value. As a pass rusher, he was still good against the run, still helps the defense, still very disciplined. That should be better. Plus, they're not playing the Browns, who might be the best running team in the NFL, although the Ravens are pretty close too. I would say in terms of pass rush, he should get some help from Reed, but it just depends on who we see.
Yeah.
Is he healthy?
The other thing that I noticed is and again, I didn't get to watch every snap of the game because if I'm watching it on a stream. Because of Noddy's absence, I saw a number of times where it was Reed that was the shaded one, not the 3, and that made a huge difference as well. Yeah. So we got to remember that the sum of the parts of the front. And while you were talking, I just pulled up because this is the one thing, folks, I didn't get my analytics piece done this week because of a foul up with the site that I use to build those infographics for you. But what I was going to do is exactly what you talked about, because you just hit me like the number of times that Chris was inside. Because according to PFF, there's only 2 snaps where he's at a tackle position. And I didn't get to watch it all. I thought I saw one more, but I didn't see more than that. So like what we talked about in the preseason, that was like 90% of the snaps out at end.
Yeah,
if that's correct.
And I saw him get aggressively doubled on at least 2 occasions on the inside. And I don't mean like, schematic doubling. I mean like an actual double team, which those are rare. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he tried to fight through him. He did a good job occupying him. It was an actual effective double team. But I really think that that's demonstrative of everything they've been talking about all offseason, where, you put him on the edge and it's really hard to just actually double team someone on the edge. Yeah. And boy, did he demonstrate some get off on that second sack. I mean, what do you do? His first sack, he just powered through. Yeah. I mean, he just gets the wrist, throws him aside, and goes right through the guy. What do you do when you're the tackle? And then he's never going to have elite bend around the edge or that sort of athleticism, but he does have a pretty high level burst off the line. Mm-hmm. Even for the end position, I think his first step off the line is very good. It's, that second and third step isn't going to be as fast as, those elite edge rushers. But that first step is very, very good. And when he timed that snap count right, I mean, that was ugly for that tackle. And, I mean, what do you do there? And so, I'm excited for this to continue to pay dividends, because I'm curious, do they play him on the edge that often in every game? Or does it alter when you get like a game where you've got like a backup, guard playing or something like that?
And maybe that should. But I'll tell you what I would do is, if I'm that tackle, is I go to my offensive line coach and I say, I need a tight end to line up in the H outside of me and slam him back into me so I don't have to deal with that. Because that's the thing, is what I don't see from Chris yet is the developed counter moves back inside. And so that's what I would do. But you're right. If there's a favorable matchup at guard, why mess with it?
Absolutely.
Brett, I will never say that they're going to match that line from the Vermiliers, period. They have to prove that before I'll even consider it.
I mean, that line, that to me is like asking if Clyde Edwards-Helaire can be as good as Jamal Charles. It's not fair. And I say that as someone who believes Jamal Charles is one of the 2 or 3 greatest runners to ever live. And I mean that when I say 2 or 3. Oh, what about? Yep, better than pretty much anyone you're going to name. Doesn't matter.
Raquel Sarris, I don't want to hear it.
And I think I can prove it objectively, but that's, we've done that before.
It's like you're a counselor.
That group, and not just the offensive line, you also had one of the 2 greatest blocking fullbacks to ever live in the actual T Rich.
Yeah.
Because Trent Richardson is not T Rich. Tony Richardson is T Rich.
Who's Trent Richardson?
And so just tremendous player. And Jason Dunn, one of the best blocking fullbacks I've ever seen. Basically like another offensive lineman out there, maybe a little smaller. Yeah. Like a little, not that much.
Not much. No.
and then, I mean, here's the reality. You got to remember, in addition to those guys, Willie Rofe, at even, when he was a little past his prime, when he was with the Chiefs, was unbelievable. I mean, as good as it gets. Yeah. Will Shields is as good as it gets at tackle. Brian Waters, at his peak at that time, is in the 90th percentile of guards. Casey Wiegman was at his peak there, a really, really good center. You don't get that. That's all lightning in a bottle. You're talking generational guys together on the line. It's like having Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce on a team together. It just doesn't happen like that usually.
Right. Not usually.
And man, it's awesome.
It's funny, you just spurred me because I used to say about Willie too, and this is by no means a comparison, but it is something to shoot for if you're Lucas Niang. I used to say about Willie that I felt he won the majority of his snaps with his feet because that's how nimble he was for a dude that size.
Only between the whistles, though.
Okay.
The minute the whistle blew, he did not look nimble at all.
Okay. Do you disagree with between the whistles though?
Oh no, I thought he was so nimble for a guy his size. It was so weird watching him move that way.
Right.
For me, one thing that was always my favorite though was, I mean, when he'd get his hands on someone, that thought they were going to edge rush and thought they were going to, and he just swallowed them whole.
Yeah.
I mean, they were just engulfed in Willie, and it was so much fun to watch because there was just a certain amount of helplessness to it. Yeah. That just like, what do you do about that? And I'm assuming coaches probably told edge rushers come to the sideline. They're like, what do I do about that? It's like nothing. I mean, just do the best you can. You're not going to bowl that guy. He's a mountain.
Exactly. There's nothing you can do about that part.
Yeah, so much fun to watch.
Interesting one from Stevie about the AFC West. Broncos or Raiders might miss the playoffs. Do you think Fangio and Gruden lose their jobs if they do?
Nah, I think Gruden keeps his.
I agree. I think Fangio loses his almost certainly. Even if they break 500, I'm not sure he stays.
Well, especially, I mean, Bridgewater looked pretty good in week 1. And I like Bridgewater. I always have.
I'm happy for him.
I've got a soft spot for him for his early time in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
I think he can play. And so that's the thing. If they get even average quarterback play with that roster, which is a pretty good roster on paper, if they can't even crack the playoffs, I think there's going to be some questions asked there.
Yeah, there has to be. Thomas, welcome to the memberships. Glad you're here. I can't see what level you joined at, but if you're starter or above right now, make sure you email me. And folks, that goes for all of you starters. We're wrapping it up. We're about to start in on the rookie tier. Not this one. That's Seth's Substack where you can go sign up for that. I need the email here at rgrpodcast@gmail. That will allow me to get you into the Discord, amongst all the other member benefits that you guys can see when you click the join button there underneath Seth. And one more plug, if you guys would check out DraftKings, I don't know if you guys are into daily fantasy, but check it out. This is a new sponsor we're trying to get off the ground, and use that code RGR21. In getting ready for the Ravens, that's what I want to switch to here now.
Yes.
Off of what we've seen, we know that the Ravens are under distress in terms of their roster at the moment, with so many people getting hurt. What would you like to see the Chiefs come out and do in terms of strategery? What's your game plan going to look like?
I mean, so from the Chiefs' perspective, I think you look and you see that the Ravens, people are making a big deal about some of their running backs being down, and I understand that that's relevant because I think some of the things they do with their run game are pretty unique. Mm-hmm. And I think it takes reps to be able to do some of that stuff. But I think a lot of that, and I think the Chiefs coaches touched on this a little bit, a lot of their stuff is predicated on Jackson's unique talents and that scheme. And I don't think that's going to go away just because some running backs are injured. I think that removes some of the ceiling because you got guys that were really good at yards after contact. Mm-hmm. And a lot of their stuff was predicated on that. Some of their wide receivers being hurt. I mean, if I were the Chiefs, I would really go with a fairly basic game plan in terms of just being very, very intentional about rushing with 4 or even 3 and being very smart about your lanes.
Mm-hmm.
You have, now you can't necessarily you can't just have one guy, shadow Lamar Jackson. That's you're setting someone up for failure there. Whoever you're going to name, he's very likely a better athlete than they are. Like in a straight foot race, he beats Tyrann Mathieu to the edge. Mm-hmm. I mean, who else are you going to, maybe he doesn't beat Snead. Snead is incredibly fast. Thornhill, but Jackson's a freak.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't necessarily just shadow him like that, but I would play a little more zone, keep everything in front of you. The very basics of basic against a Ravens offense that I think is a little more limited in their offensive play calling because they're down so many guys. And I think you just count on those mismatches up front that you should have ideally. And that, again, that's a pretty basic thing for the Chiefs. On offense, just maybe hope that the Ravens just keep doing the same thing they've been doing. They can't do it again though, right? I just got done talking to Josh and Nate about this on Times Ours. There's no way for the third year in a row the Ravens are going to do the same thing.
This is
right?
the NFL. Some guys do what they do. And Wink might be one of them.
They can't. It worked in 2008. Mahomes was not nearly as good. Well,
Mahomes was 12 then.
Yeah, I mean,
did you say 2008? Mahomes was 12, right?
Yeah, 2018.
Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
when he was 12, yes, when he was 12, that probably would have worked. But I don't know. Maybe. 2018, it worked. I mean, to an extent. The Chiefs still won the game because Mahomes did some freakish things. But it worked in terms of bothering him, showing 7 guys at the line and 6 of them are all on 2 feet and a lot of Belichick type stuff, sending, a lot of fake pressures, that kind of stuff. That bothered Mahomes in 2018. Mm-hmm. They tried it again in 2019 and he sliced it up. They won a game that wasn't nearly as close as the final score indicated. Yeah. They tried to get into 2020 and the announcers were like, man, they got to stop blitzing. Like I don't know why they're
doing it wrong.
Because Louis Riddick, if I recall, was like, man, they got to stop this. Like they got to figure something out. This game plan isn't working. You can't. Mahomes hasn't been really vulnerable to the blitz other than one game last year. And that was the Falcons, who were like kitchen sinking it.
Yeah.
And maybe you can do that. Maybe you can scrap your entire normal defense because the Falcons had fired their defensive coordinator and Sutton was filling in. And, they did some stuff that took Mahomes completely by surprise. Mm-hmm. I just haven't seen any other team do that. Like, people talk about the Buccaneers, like, never blitzed during the Super Bowl. They just, had better players up front.
They just had the matchups, yeah.
I'm not comparing us. I upset the moderator. I'm about to get banned. I'm not comparing us to them. But I would just say, if you're the Ravens, you've got to change it up. You got to try something different than what you've done.
Yeah.
I just don't know how many teams. That's one thing I appreciate about Spagnuolo is while he has his stuff, you see some pretty varied game plans depending on the matchups, and not everyone's willing to do that.
No, not everyone's capable of doing that at that league. I'm just saying.
Yeah, their offense is just their defense is just their defense, and this is what they know.
Yeah, and their system is not as flexible as Spagnuolo has. You can cry about the deficits. You can cry about him not caring about what they give up on against the run. Mm-hmm. I'll cry about it if you guys won't. But it is a lesser part of the whole. Cole, thank you for this, guys. If you would all hit the like button right now, that would help us.
Yes.
That helps.
It looks like this.
Us.
Or like this.
Yes, I like that. This guy. That's what I'm saying. Info, trade a guard to the Raiders. They might overpay. But quite frankly, you don't want to strengthen them in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, we'll see how things play out Sunday, but I'm guessing the Ravens right now are kind of regretting trading a offensive lineman to a rival. Although, obviously apples and oranges. I still, though, right now, like when you see the things the Ravens are going through, I understand getting value for a guy before he walks in free agency because you're not going to get the same value for him. And I understand that Orlando Brown kind of maybe sort of asked to be traded or basically said, play me at left tackle or trade me. Maybe they were worried about dysfunction in a really harmonious locker room. I get all those reasons. But, man, Villanueva, who's a guy that you and I kind of were like, I guess if the Chiefs don't have any other options, which goes to show that's why you trade for Orlando Brown.
Exactly.
Because otherwise the Chiefs would be starting Villanueva, maybe. Although one thing I would say is that Villanueva, I'm curious what he looks like at left tackle.
He is more comfortable there. I have to expect.
He's much more comfortable there. And I'm glad Sewell got switched over.
Play left.
Yeah, that he got to play left. Because people were like, oh, you just forgot how to play football or what? No, left tackle versus right tackle is very different. Not everyone can switch. Some people are way better at one side than the other. And maybe Villanueva will actually play at an average level at left tackle, and someone will come in at right tackle who's a sub and play about the same level Villanueva did at right tackle, or maybe even a little better, because it's hard to be worse than he was against the Raiders. That's hard to do. And Stanley was injured. So honestly, they might be better at tackle than they were against the Raiders if Villanueva is a little more comfortable. If he's just as cooked as he looked.
Yeah, it's going to be a heyday, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'll fun watch it. It might be another game where Jones takes 90% of his snaps at end.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I'm going to be tracking, folks. I will get back to the analytics videos. I'm going to do some quick hitters for you this week, or this season. I mean, like as we go through, we're going to keep Chief in the North on Thursdays. We'll see how that evolves. We might have some tweaks. I want to do something on Thursday nights though, since I have you, because the game plan video, and folks, the game plan video went up late last week. We didn't get the exposure we wanted. Tell everybody the game plan video is on Fridays. You got to watch that because it sets up the whole thing. But what I don't get to do is get a prediction from you or a hey, what do you think is going to happen? So if you don't mind, I'd like to pick your brain about how you see this next contest going, and we'll wrap up there.
Sure. All right. So is it just the broad question how it ends up going?
Yeah, like you do whatever you want. You don't have to give a score if you don't want to, but what do you see the evolution this week against the Ravens?
I think, and what I try to do is assume that people do what I would do, which is insane, but I don't know, it's just what I do. I think the Ravens try to change it up a little bit from what they've normally done and really maybe see if Campbell and Houston can give them kind of a throwback game, get a little bit of pressure, see if they're able to clamp down on some stuff in terms of using some of those speedy linebackers they have to try to at least prevent Kelsey from wreaking havoc while they play some kind of deep shell over the top. That's what I would do. The Ravens have never done that, like ever. But that's what I would do. The other thing that I see them doing is just trying the same dang thing that they've tried over and over, and the Chiefs like scoring on their first 4 possessions.
Right.
And that's what's happened the last 2 times they played the Ravens. They've just boat raced them from the get-go, and the games haven't really been very competitive after like midway through the third quarter. I could see it very easily going that way again. It's any given Sunday. The Ravens do have a good and deep roster, even with a lot of injuries. So you never know what will happen. I think the most likely thing to happen, though, is that the Chiefs have a more comfortable time than they did last week.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Folks, you'll see my whole prediction tomorrow, but I'll tell you this. If I'm the Ravens, I try to put Marlon Humphrey on Travis and just slow him down. You're not going to stop him. But I'd try to be in his face as much as possible because I think he's the only defender they have in their secondary that can do anything against Travis. Yeah. And I'd play 3 deep over the top in variations,
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is.
Yeah, and that's one thing people should know. You don't need to play cover 2 to be able to play deep. You can play 3 deep over the top. The Niners did it and created some shells there that were very successful. Mm-hmm. But you got to get pressure. Yeah. You can't. Doesn't matter how good that 3 deep over the top is if you're not getting pressure, because Mahomes will eventually find someone. He always will. Or he'll scamper for a 15-yard gain. Like, that's just not even hard for him.
No.
Yeah, I did get a request, and I think we're wrapping up here, right?
Yeah, got a minute or two.
I would just say no matter what happens, after a wonderful week at Arrowhead, a wonderful week with my family, eating wonderful food, and the Chiefs playing a wonderful game, it's a really good week to be a Chiefs fan.
It so is, and I'm glad you said that too. That's awesome. We're back on track. Folks, like, sub, bell notification, click them all right now. We'll be back with you. The game plan does come out. I'm going to put it out a little bit earlier tomorrow. Me, Matt, Derek, Daniel cover that, and we get you ready. Then something special on Saturday, something special on Sunday. Don't forget the channel all the way up to game day, and then we'll have post game for you as well. Seth, thank you for taking the time as always.
Oh, yes. Mwah! There you go.
Oh, that's so nice. Folks, hit the Substack down below at minnesotachiefsfan.substack.com. Hit me with the email when you join. We hope that you enjoy this, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Check out that game plan video. We'll catch you next time.